This morning in the Atlanta airport, no one's missing a meal on Mac Wilburn's watch. With 11 restaurants to serve passengers, he's got dining for every destination. And it all started when Mac talked with First Horizon Bank about opening a franchise in the airport. Now it's open for business and cleared for takeoff. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Mac. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
You have marketing questions and the Mad Men have answers. In this two-part series, we answer marketing questions from companies all over Georgia. What do we really think of social media? What metrics can be used to really gauge effectiveness? What percentage of my budget should go to digital marketing? These are all questions we will practically answer based on our decades of industry experience. If you have questions, please submit them to madmen@extra1063.com and we will do our best to answer them in a future episode. All that and more on today's episode of the Marketing Mad Men.
They say marketing is a madman's game. So now we turn it over to the Marketing Madman with Nick Constantino and Trip Job.
Happy Saturday. Welcome to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here, live from the Battery. And, a while back we took listener questions again, and I think we had a lot of great questions. And so, we've had a few more come in, and I think it's, hopefully a good topic for the day. Today,
Yeah.
People are thinking about their business and, what can I do to, maybe instill a little extra growth or, think about, hey, how do I think for the year ahead? So.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these are food for thought to challenge the partners you currently have. Because again, you got to know enough where you're trusting, but you're verifying it. Yeah. And you're verifying it by saying, look, here's what I'm seeing from my end. I don't care what your metrics say. Here's what my gut as a business owner of X amount of years is telling me. What are your responses? What are your back? Can you show me the data? I don't need cherry pick data. Can you show me the data points in which are leading you to believe these things? You'd be surprised when you actually challenge how quickly things get fixed. Because a lot of times what happens is these agencies, they extend themselves too far. They take on too much work, or marketing directors, and they're not focused. Marketing requires focus all the time.
Well, the other thing I will see, I've seen over the years is someone only is focused on their narrow band.
Of course.
And,
human nature. That is not a criticism by any means.
And
to
that's
be a
even
successful
within
business
an
owner,
agency.
you have to be hyper-focused, but it also limits you have blinders on.
Right. I mean, we've talked in the past about, email marketing. We've talked about other, advertising channels, and I've seen it time and time again where someone goes out and creates this advertisement, whether it's digital and otherwise they're pushing, and email is doing something 90 degrees different. Right. And it's just like, well, what are you doing?
Yeah. What's the intention?
Right?
What's the reason you're doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's hit it. So let's get into some questions. They all fit into what we just talked about. But, again, the goal ultimately, first of all, if you have any questions, please send them to madmen@extra1063.com. That's madmen@extra1063.com. We're happy to answer them. We'll do our best to get them on the show. Yeah. We'll give you a shout out. Put your last name. Most people are putting their first name. Apparently they don't want the radio love. Maybe put your business, get some free promo. Do this the right way. It's part of marketing, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? Let's actually start with that because that's kind of some PR, right? I think that we call that PR. So how does PR fit in with my marketing? That's the first question. And now, apparently, if you're asking that question, you did not go to college for marketing because rule number one, okay, advertising is part of marketing. Marketing is not part of advertising. PR is part of marketing. Public relations is part of your marketing plan. So how does it fit in? It should be directly related. Now, how does it fit in overall? That's a much tougher question. Trip, what do you think?
Well, I think a lot of people think of PR as free. All right, that's the first problem. All right, so hey, let's get some PR for this, and we just want to get some brand exposure. We want to be tied into something else, and then they find out, to be associated with this event, this celebrity, this foundation, whatever, it costs money.
Always.
Right, and so I think that's one of the things that I think there's just. And part of it is I think the PR community has not done a good job of really talking about the importance of PR, where PR can benefit. And I go back, I think we've talked about in the past, is one of their big metrics they often use is impressions. I'll get you all these impressions. What does it mean?
You could pay for impressions. If you put out a press release, you could pay Newswire to get it, PR Wire to get it everywhere. The question is, it gets in. Who is
reading
it or opening it? And the answer is almost nobody is reading it and opening it.
And so I think PR is more effective if you have, I think back to when we had really good PR. There was some things you had to do in the trade. If you're a business to business, all right, you wanted to be well connected. You wanted to have. I had this the other day. I had an editor come to me about a big article they're writing. So we're connected enough that all of a sudden the trade publication is asking for our opinion on these big articles. Well, sometimes you need to have that connection. That's worth something. All right. So
But again, that's that thought leadership. You're being reached out to because you've probably established yourself as an industry leader in that sense.
Right. But a good PR agency will help you establish those in other cases. But the other thing is get them thinking about ways that you can be in the community, be in maybe your industry, and they may, are the ones who are able to give you and help you develop connections or put you in with an event or an upcoming, foundation program or something like that. I think that to me is where PR it almost helps you more with the event and experiential opportunities.
I agree.
And they can help you activate that versus trying to think of them on your own.
Yeah, 2 parts. I think one, it's a great observation, and is ultimately you could pay for an event that is still a community-based event and then just not do anything with effort. The PR's job is to take whatever content you grab or thought you did and money you raised and just make it seem as big as possible. Okay?
Exactly.
Raising $1,000 for a good organization or $100,000, it doesn't matter. The point is, hey, we're giving back to the community. That can be spun in a million ways. So, for example, you sponsor a golf tournament. The golf tournament is all about your executives playing golf or you're entertaining clients. Let's call it what it is. But even if they give 5% of the proceeds to a good organization, milk that for all it's worth and talk about it. The other problem is that we assume PR is just damage control. And when we've made a bad move, we want positive PR. It doesn't work that way, right? You are already labeled a villain unless you have built up goodwill over time. And then the PR is to say, hey, this is the exception to a rule. We made a mistake. That's when PR really works. So it's almost a preemptive strike, if you will.
If you're doing CYA, then you've got a bigger
Cover your
problem.
ass. That's what it means.
Yeah.
Just in case. Look, we've had a couple of PR people on. We're going to have another one on this season. I'm excited about it. I think the problem with PR is most businesses don't understand it. They don't understand how to value it. So what they do is say they expect those PR people, let's go get them free advertising.
Yeah. And I think sometimes with newer businesses, and we've had a few of these, and especially if they're in the community and they're trying to get well known, I think that's where PR I've seen some benefit. All right. But, if you're a newer business and you're more let's just say a service oriented or things of that nature, I'm not sure where PR is going to help you. But if you're a bricks and mortar in a community, PR may be able to figure out ways to help bring you to the community and bring the community to you.
Yeah, and this is where it makes sense maybe to have a marketing person because that marketing person could do 20% of the time on PR.
Yeah.
You don't always need a dedicated role. What you need is a strategy and you need a reason to do PR. There's always a reason. Doesn't matter what your thing is, you got to get back to the community these days. You have to be. So, it's a great question. I think everyone, even if you don't have a PR person, needs a PR strategy. And I actually think, if you're being honest, I heard someone say SEO is even part of PR, right? How are you relating to the public? Well, how your website gives information is a huge part of PR and community relations.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of companies that do wonderful PR and then they don't put it on their website. Right. I mean,
so how are you getting it to the public?
Yeah,
how is the public
guess
seeing
what?
the public relations?
If the 27 people who were at the event, were there, they remember you, but what about anyone else? Right?
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, and again, I think it's important to understand, let's go marketing 101 and all different parts of it. Advertising is one small part of marketing. PR is one part of it. Community relations, internal communications. So we're talking public relations. What about your internal communications? Because right now, there are higher level people talking about internal communications than there are PR, which is funny because ultimately, what they do is they want those leaks to get out for internal communications because that becomes their PR.
Exactly. Well, and it's, how do the employees feel about the company? And you're hitting on a point that I think I see a lot of people not understand, and that is whether it's an event, whether it's a campaign, you name it, people think it's, okay, I get to do this one time, and that's it. And you have the ability, whether it's to use PR, to put it on your website, to put it on if you do a newsletter, a blog, you have the ability to get that message out, whatever it is, multiple ways and multiple times. We talked content strategy in the past.
If you know what you're doing, because if you hit people too many times, then you're going to lose them also.
Oh no, absolutely. But I see so many people who think I do this and I can only mention it once, right? Or I put out an article or a blog, I can only do it once. Why not do it 6 months later if the topic is relevant? Yeah. Guess what? We all remember it because we wrote it and we know when we posted it.
The consumer forgot it 1 minute after they read it.
Or they never read it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of people have, whether it's PR, content, you name it, they've got more that they can actually put out and repeat and recycle and reuse effectively. To your point, don't blast it every day. Yep. I'm tired of seeing this, about so-and-so event. But there's ways to utilize it and get more bang for your buck.
Yeah, and I think my wife is in she's in the space of charity. Let's just call it what it is, okay? She's an NGO, huge NGO, and they bring money and they take women and babies in Africa that are dying in childbirth. So that space has changed so dramatically. This new generation of people coming in, all they want is the PR. They're not going to give a $3 million check unless they have some influence on how that money is being spent, and they have the goodwill coming from what it is done. That has drastically changed. That's not what the last set of billionaires were. They just give money. Those days are over. Yeah. They are not. It's no more. I mean, I think Bezos.
What's in it for them, right?
And you don't want to say it but let's call it what it is. Okay, altruism is fake.
Yeah.
They're not altruistic people in the world. Everybody was doing something. Capitalism breeds. Everyone is doing something for a reason to push an agenda. Now, some people do it for better reasons than others. But once you understand that, how does that charitable giving fit into your PR? Because especially the bigger you are you giving it to the right organizations? Do they have a clean record? This is all public information now. No. How much of that money is actually going to the charity? You can go on some of these websites and it'll tell you, like the Red Cross, all these companies, are their executives just getting richer and richer and richer? This is all public information. You have to be very strategic with how you place these things.
That goes back to one of the early questions is, should you have a PR firm? And I think the more you start getting into that and you start getting into the charitable donations or tying yourself with influencers or events, that's where you probably want somebody who is doing the fact checking, so to speak, and just making sure that you don't walk into a landmine.
Yeah. Look, I think if I was going to throw an arbitrary number out, I think 80 to 100 people is the time to start thinking about actually having a dedicated PR or, again, HR is a dirty word, but I think internal communications and external communications can be the same role if done right. But I think that's about the size of the company where we're not talking about benefits. We're talking about what is being messaged to your employees and what are they going outward with messaging. I think about 100 employees, maybe 20 mil, 30 mil in revenue is when you might have to start having that conversation. Before that, you can hire a publicist that does 10 hours a week to help you guys out.
Yeah, there's a good bit of freelancers who can help you in a lot of those areas. So I think that's probably a pretty good rule of thumb, at least. All right, so we're going to come back from the break. We'll take some more questions here and see what's on the minds of the Marketing Madmen listeners. So you've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3, and we'll be right back.
This morning in the Atlanta airport, no one's missing a meal on Mac Wilburn's watch. With 11 restaurants to serve passengers, he's got dining for every destination. And it all started when Mac talked with First Horizon Bank about opening a franchise in the airport. Now it's open for business and cleared for takeoff. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Mac. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Marketing is everywhere. From the billboards on the highways to the notifications on your phone, we are constantly bombarded with people trying to sell us stuff. What makes good marketing? Are you doing enough in your life personally and professionally to market yourself? You have questions, and the Marketing Madmen have answers. Search the Marketing Madmen on Google or your favorite podcast provider to get practical marketing advice from expert guests who are shaping and reshaping the business world. They say marketing is a madman's game. Join the Marketing Madmen every Saturday at 4 p.m. to find out why.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here on Extra 106.3. We're taking questions, and we've seen obviously it's some challenging in the business environment these days, and a lot of people are like, boy, I've got to compete, or I feel like I've got to compete to get that next customer. So we get questions a lot about, should I use coupons? Should I do certain types of promotions, maybe through digital or texting or email? Yep. I mean, there's a lot of different ways, but I think the general the general concept is, do I need to start discounting in some ways? And when do I start discounting?
Yeah. So before we go into the conversation, there's one thing that I think is really, really important to understand. Everybody's always paying for something, okay? And products that are in the highest demand and the most expensive and never go on sale are because there's demand that exists. So usually if something is $200 and you see it on sale for $20, don't buy it. You're being tricked into buying something that's really worth $20.
Yeah.
So it is important to differentiate between what a coupon is, what loyalty is, what a promotion is. So I think COVID screwed a lot of this up. I was just with a big supplier, apparel, licensing, and they explained to me what happened. So COVID, everybody was not getting their products out, but the demand grew so fast for outdoor gear, for example. So they had to rush all this product in. By the time the supply and the demand caught up, they were stuck with all this extra merchandise. So, but the problem is, if you discount that, then people expect the discount on the next line that comes out. So they're in the conundrum phase. What do you do to get rid of this stuff?
Yeah, seasonal, especially seasonal type products.
And the question is really, should we light it on fire and not discount it, because in the long run, we will save money because we're keeping our value proposition? And I think that's a good way to start this conversation. There are differences between a loyalty club, promotions, and couponing. Automatically, when you hear the word coupon, I think cheap. I think even promo codes are starting to be gone down in e-commerce. You just think cheap. So if you're going to coupon, make sure you're couponing on something that is not a $100,000 thing, right? You don't coupon on a car. You coupon on pizza. You coupon on something that's almost a commodity. So I think differentiating between those things
you
is
don't
important.
coupon. I mean, I see it. I mean, we all see it. We get them in the mail every now and then. You see people who will coupon on, decks and swimming pools and things like that. I don't get it, but a lot of those businesses
on a swimming pool
have but there's
would
some.
you do it on a swimming pool? I would do it on a gutter cleaning.
No, but
I would take a coupon on a gutter cleaning.
But you'll see it. Take $1,000 off or whatever, and like, okay, there's a whole nother.
I'm about to spend $90,000. You think the $1,000 coupon is going to really differentiate? But it does. It does work. There are people that it works on. It's completely fine. But just know, you are not paying the discount. You're paying what it's worth. No matter what, they just ability to coupon means they priced it too high to begin with. So keep that in mind. So I drive people away from coupons and even promotions on certain mass media channels, because mass media is what's controlling your narrative externally. And in those instances, it is better to do a value proposition than rely on price. And that's another important thing. Not the price. What is the value of said good? If you focus on price, you're always price sensitive. You're not value sensitive. So I think that's important also.
Yeah, and how do you get people in? So let's go back to the restaurant kind of analogy, whether it's pizza or otherwise. How do you get people in? Are there other reasons that you get them in? Maybe there's things you can offer, right? And it could be anything from sometimes you get the things around music or other events, and you get people. So how do you get them in? Yeah. And then how do you can improve the user experience while they're there without having to discount?
Yeah, I'll give you a great example. Johnny's Pizza, okay? They don't coupon, but you know what they do? On every box of pizza, they do $2 off your next pizza. Yeah. So yes, you are waiving a coupon, but you're waiving a coupon because you've already purchased something. So really, it's a cheaper way to make a loyalty program. Right. Because if they're coming in with that box, they already bought something. So you have built some form of loyalty.
Customer.
So that I'm all for something like that. That is couponing in its sense, because the box is convenient to put something on. But that is I think that's a smart idea, right? Promotions, like all these new men's apparel. What they do is you spend a certain amount, you'll get a free item. You'll get like a pair of boxers, and they'll do a loyalty and all that stuff. And ultimately, you're trying to build loyalty.
Yeah. How many free Bluetooth speakers did you see during the holiday season this year? I think every apparel manufacturer was giving away a Bluetooth speaker.
If there is one thing on earth I don't need any more of, it is Bluetooth speakers. I have so many. And they do. It is, to be fair, it is unbelievable how good a speaker that's the size of a can sounds. They sound better than my old stereos used to sound with 16 speakers on. It's amazing how far the technology has come. But like that, they last for 10 years. You don't need new speakers everywhere you go. Yeah,
no question.
But I think this fits into loyalty programs. You see a lot of loyalty programs. What do you think? If you had to pick, let's say you are a, you're a, one of the things that COVID started was really put into effect was the demand curves changed, and all of a sudden everything was riding high, but you had to start discounting to compete with other people. So let's write off a couple of brands. So for example, automotive. Okay, you're starting to see those coupons and that stuff. The promotions come in for automotive. What industries do you think are easiest to coupon for, and what industries should stay away from it? Because even Mercedes-Benz, you're starting to see offers for. And they were always the longest to stay away from it.
Well, yeah, I think on the new cars they are. I mean, and it depends. I think, if you're in the EV space, I think some of those are not. I mean, there's still, you got a lot. You're above list in a lot of cases.
The Mercedes EQSs are going for fucking $15,000, $20,000 off price right now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I said freaking leave me alone. Leave me alone, Flash. I said freaking strike. Don't listen to him. So, but they're going for 20, 30 grand off right now. There's no demand for EVs. They dropped for the floor for multiple reasons. We were promised when Teslas came out that we'd be at 400-mile range. You know what happens? It was cold out yesterday. We couldn't take our EV down to Columbus. You know why? Because it says 250. That's on a perfect 70-degree day with no AC, no heat. I would have gotten 140 miles out of it with no charging station anywhere to be found. So. You're right, but it's based on, look, the most important thing about couponing, loyalty, all that stuff is we as a country have botched schooling so bad. There's nothing more important to a business than supply and demand. I don't care what anyone says. Basic economic principles of supply and demand. Understand your supply demand curve and understand most buyers are hip to this. They understand this world a lot better, especially the sophisticated ones, and don't trick them into thinking. You can't trick them. If you have a lot of supply and you feel you need to discount it, but make somewhere clear that this sale is never happening again, because the worst thing I see is the Macy's one-day sale.
Oh, Macy's has a 360 days of the year sale. Macy's
is a one-day sale. How many days a week?
Right, every day. And that's the point. I think there's like 5 days a year they don't sale. And then I think the apparel industry, unfortunately, has gotten where you're used to the end of the season sales. And then there's one more, and add this off. And now it's 50%. And now it's, add another 10%.
Apparently, they never read The Boy Who Cried Wolf.
I know.
Cried Wolf so many times.
So guess what? You just wait.
You.
It's all a matter of, right. There might be a couple of things that some other people buy out of, but I'm like, so what? I don't need it, right? I think shoes are one that's held up fairly well, especially tennis shoes and.
So you bring up a good point. So shoes have done a really good job. These collaborations of those limited releases that go on Hyperbeast, they have done a really good job. And the allure is going to wear off. Like it's not a limited release if you're releasing a limited release every week. It's not limited anymore. But they have done a really good job of those collaborations driving prices up the brand. I looked out of nowhere. New Balance was the number 2 sought after brand on Hyperbeast. Yeah. New Balance was an afterthought 5 years ago. It is now number 2. It has passed Adidas, every one of those, on all of them, passed them all because of these collaborations. So that is a great example of, if you're doing a limited release, you're never going to have to coupon it because it's gone before you can get your hands on it. So I think that's the other side of the spectrum, that if you have that ability, you could also do.
Yeah. I think the other one that, we've talked a little bit about home improvement in places. We talked about gutters. We talked about, it could be window cleaning, you name it. I think there's times where if you know that your pipeline is a little light, very short term, very specific, right? Because guess what? You are paying people, and if you don't get the most use out of them, then hey, but do it. Don't make it, hey, this is the summer deal. If you're at that point, you've probably got a bigger problem with your overall brand and getting people in. But from time to time, you might, and maybe it's going back. You've got that email list or other list, and it's very targeted. How do I fill up that short-term window and utilize your people and your labor?
Yeah, I'll give you a great example of that. So we have a client, won't say who it is. They do very expensive outdoor renovations. And the idea was, let's do a month of free financing, okay? Mm-hmm. Great idea. Financing is really expensive. If you're paying 8%, 10, 12% on a $60,000 job, that is an expensive interest endeavor. So I said, love the idea, love the commercial. Here's what's missing. Context. Give the people an idea of how much money they could save. Right. Because 0% at those rates you're talking 10, 12 grand potentially that could be saved. And now most people buy it, finance it, and probably pay it off in a year or two, right? If you could afford a $70,000 renovation. But just the thought of how much you can save all of a sudden makes that real. Because people are not doing in their head while they're listening to their favorite radio station? Math. Yeah. They're not doing math in their head. Give them, this is what you could save. And I think that's really missed out on a lot of times. Even cars, 0% financing. Okay, Well, if it's a 12% lease and you took out 70 grand on 10 years, you're saving 20 grand at 0%. They don't say that enough. It's a shame. You should say that because that is a real savings. Most people should be able to know the difference.
Yeah. All right. So what's next? What other questions do we have from listeners?
All right. So we got one, and I'm going to broaden this a little bit because it's specific. Okay. The question is really about programmatic advertising. Okay. It's a buzzword. It's something people always talk about, and it's one I am personally intimately familiar with because I do it for our company and I do it for other companies through our platform. So my thoughts on it have adapted over time, but I'll turn it over to you, Trip. What do you think of programmatic advertising, and what do you think of the reputation that it's built over the past couple of years?
Well, I think the reputation is, maybe you want to go into a little bit of some of the specifics, but I think part of the problem with programmatic is the fact that you don't necessarily know what you're getting, when your ads are being placed, and are you getting, 3 a.m. when only the insomniacs are up, and those type of things, right? And so I think that's a problem of, I'm turning this over to, find the best spot or fill in a gap, et cetera, and I really don't know how that relates to my target market.
Yeah. So based on the data I have, and just for some context, you're talking hundreds of millions of impressions that I have placed on behalf of clients in our environment in which I know who the listener is. So it's not, to be fair, I'm only placing on places that are in my control. So it's not a completely fair assessment, but I've seen enough. So the biggest problem with programmatic is because the perception is that it's cheap and cost effective, people treat it as a cheap tool. And what I mean is, to do programmatic the right way, you need a hell of a brand message. Yeah. You need a hell of a commercial because it is spray and pray. Yeah. It is, no matter what anyone says, how many times have you been watching Hulu, okay? And you see a commercial, you go, how in God's name did that show up on my thing, right? Like, honestly, this is not a statement of anything, but I saw 500 HIV ads in a month on my Hulu. Okay, why were they targeting me? If it's so targeted, I have in a heterosexual relationship with 2 children. Why is it 2 gay men targeting me with HIV ads on television? And it's not even a criticism. It's just who decided, what made them think.
I think it says more about your watching habits.
Something has to be something. Honestly, I wish that was the answer. I feel better for the marketers. But the point is that it's just why. You cannot be as targeted as they say they are. Data isn't the answer. So you have to have a really strong, powerful message with a strong call to action, with tracking mechanisms, not if it ran, if someone heard it and they take action. So the advances now have become UTM codes and pixels. And if you know how to utilize those things, I think programmatic is incredibly powerful. Now, here's the problem. Every time you add something, somebody else wants a cut of that money. So we've had this experiment for Google, the Lumascape once, and wait till you see the cluster F that digital advertising is. There are 30 different purveyors, each with their hands out, when it all speaks to each other, that are taking a cut. Your analytics people are taking a cut. Your call to action people are taking a cut. Your media people, your marketing people, the clearinghouse, which makes the data, which makes sure you're reaching the right person. Everybody takes a cut. So a $20 CPM, when you really look at it, is probably returning an $8 CPM once everybody has their hands out. That's not effective.
Well, and I think that gets back to what can be bad about not only programmatic, but other things such as lead generation. And a lot of people will promote it as, boy, your cost per lead, your cost per impression is incredibly inexpensive. All right? Why don't they use the word cheap? Because sometimes that's what it is. It's cheap when you do it on
it's cheap because the quality of leads is cheap also.
Exactly. So I think that's you talk about reputation. I think that's one of the negatives. And I think, look, I get inundated every day with companies trying to hit me about lead generation, and I just block them off. You don't understand our business. I'm not going there.
Yeah. And again, one thing, a lot of that's automated these days. And I've had demos of the systems. They're really intuitive. The problem is that you are not keeping real track of who the decision makers are. You're just finding people whose title says CMO and saying they're the decision maker.
Exactly.
Well, what if they're not? What if it's a national company? You think the CMO is taking my call from just Atlanta? Well, mine, because I'm awesome, they're taking it. Yeah. But most people, they're not taking their call from a small market. They have bigger things to worry about than a little thing than being in the weeds. So I think you're right. I think, look, like anything on the internet, there are ways to game the system. And ultimately, every time the game wears out, and you have to go back to fundamental principles. So if you have a event that runs out and you're trying to drive awareness of said event, there is a very easy way to use it, and I think programmatic works very well. right?
So
but if you're making a long-term brand campaign, I don't think it's
if it's new and it's hot and you can't understand it, then there's probably a reason. And I think that's the key. And that's what we've seen different things of, and I think that was programmatic early on is, everyone was hearing it was the greatest thing, but did you really understand it? And how did it play out over time?
And do you have the mechanisms? Because this is all about trackability, to track where it is, not who went to your website.
Right.
Can you follow them all the way through a funnel to see if they called or made a decision? What is the factor that you're gauging the success on? And to be honest with you, as someone who's dealt with 50, 60 companies who've done it, most people don't have an answer. They just think it's an easier way. Like, no offense, it's like billboards, right? The billboard attempt is just put your name out there and hope you get a brand lift.
Yeah.
Okay? That's what programmatic is. There's more to it than that if you know what you're doing.
Well, hey, I see that Susan in Snellville is curious about AI and how AI is going to help marketing and in certain areas that maybe we need to be cognizant of.
Susan, first of all, the robots are not coming for you. We are not there yet. We have not reached the point. Terminator is not happening, so don't panic. Look, I think AI is a really good way to take redundant tasks and automate them, a way to benefit business. I also think if you are asking about AI, you probably don't have the systems in place to utilize it correctly. What I mean is, all AI is doing is running algorithmic equations. It is saying, it's making every word you say an input into a 1 and 0 and then processing it to make an output, okay? So if you have good inputs, if, let's say, for example, you have a really good CRM system that's matching up with your marketing, it can say, AI, read articles based on my pipeline, tell me what strategies I should utilize next, okay? The variables there are your CRM systems talking to your marketing? Have you used your marketing effectively? Does your CRM system reflect the national average, or is it localized? Are you in a big market? Are you in a small market? Again, the inputs dictate the output. So now there are places where it's really easy to use. For example, you can go onto a website, take this podcast, say, podcast, find me best clips of audio for TikTok and Instagram, find me best videos. And it will do that for you because it learns over time how to do it. Most people aren't thinking of it that way. They're thinking, I don't want to hire a person. Where do I use AI? And I will tell you right now, you will fail 10 out of 10 times if that is your thought process behind it.
Yeah, and it's, a lot of times we're using it for research, right? How do you start going back to content? How do you get the initial points?
But you need data.
Right.
You content on what? You can't look at national averages for your businesses based on my sales pipeline and previous sales, make some predictions on what. If you kept good numbers on who your clients are and good CRM, that's a very easy task. You could do that yourself if you had the time.
Right. The other one we're actually doing an experiment on, and I think we're going to be able to get him on here as the founder for Humantic AI. And so they basically take your LinkedIn profile and using the DISC system, right, they evaluate how people communicate. So we're in a very one-to-one, having a conversation, understanding how people make buying decisions.
Yeah, super niche.
Super niche, very B2B probably in most cases. Could be B2C in some.
And it's going to come back and say, over a golf course when they're drunk, like every other business on earth has ever been.
Actually, it's not. It's surprising how many different profiles so far. Yeah. But, it's still an experiment, but it has at times shown an amazing accuracy in understanding and developing that business relationship language.
Yeah. So and again, you're talking a huge sample size of it's pulling that can probably make some pretty scarily accurate things. And just for the record, what it's doing, it's scouring your interests. Like, you play golf with clients. Okay, they're more likely to be closed on a golf course. You don't drink. You're not closing over drinks. So it is scouring. So just so everybody knows, everything you put on one of these sites will be either held against you or work in your favor at some point, because AI is just stealing intellectual property to reuse for people. So don't be surprised if John, who's coming in to sell you something, knows to the T where you went to college. It's unbelievable, realistically, how it works.
Exactly. But, a lot of it, a good salesperson would try to figure out himself.
The Marlin on the wall. Yep, that's why you do it. That's why sometimes you want people to come to you. Go to them. See what's important to them. They call it the Marlin on the wall. If that guy's a fisherman and you can't talk about fishing, you're kind of screwed, man. Yeah. Go learn about fishing. Go learn about fishing for marlin.
So what other AI tools have you seen so far that have at least piqued your interest?
So I like the predictive data analytics side where you can input 5 years of previous data and start making some predictions. So because we are in a media heavy space, in theory, if I upload all my data from previously, it can make some predictions on what's going to happen in the next couple of years. I think that predictive analytics is going to be huge. And we're just scratching the surface of it, but this is more from a content side. So if your predictive analytics say the audience is getting younger and more into college football, well, what the hell do you think you should talk about on air? Yeah. You're predicting based on market trends, based on your data set, what's coming out of it.
Not only what you should talk about, where should you start targeting? How do you target them?
If the advertiser list, because what's going to follow 6 months after that listener changes is the advertisers should change with it. So I think, but again, you're talking about, we've had robust Google Analytics with 10 million page views now for 7-8 years. That's enough of a data set where if the machines are wrong, then shame on them, because any idiot could figure that out if they had enough time. No offense. If you have 8 years of data and you know an article and what's happening in the market, anyone should be able to figure that out.
Well, but that goes back to in larger companies, the tenure of CMOs is 18 to 20 months, right? So people, unfortunately, people turn over, even CEOs turn over,
I agree.
right?
I agree. Yeah, no, it's a good conversation. I think, look, AI is can be as powerful a tool as you make it, but if you use it as a crutch, it will sting you in the
It's not
longer.
the answer. It is one tool in your tool belt. And how do you use it? And I think back to one of the first comments you made is you're not using it to replace people. Are you using it? Right. Not yet.
Because it learns from itself. It's coming.
Right. But are you using it to make people more effective and or efficient?
Yeah.
Efficient for us is some of the research for our content.
Yes.
Right? It can do that research a lot faster than I can.
Yep. And you're right, but here's the one thing. What does effective mean? Effective is, are people clicking on it? Does AI make people click on it? You don't know. You cannot. It can make it more efficient, like it got in front of more eyeballs, but people clicking on it, that's effective. That's much harder. That's more, look, I think AI is good at objective things, not yet at subjective things. I think we can leave it at that.
Totally agree. And I think that's, if I'm more efficient, that's the premise. If I'm more efficient, then can I be more effective at the things you're paying me to do?
Right.
And I think that's the challenge a little bit.
If something can help you be more efficient, then you can dedicate time to being more effective. I think that's a fair way to put it. Yeah. I agree. That's a good point.
But it's going to be a topic that is going to continue to come up, and I think people are going to see ways. This is the answer. And I think what Nick's trying to get across is go back to your business, go back to what you're really trying to accomplish. And, if you're going to do something, experiment. Experiment for a small period of time, understand it, and but have a goal in mind.
Yep.
All right? And don't go in just guns blazing and say, all right, we're going to do this, and we're going to, grow this much business or get rid of this many people. Experiment slowly and see how it works in. So when we come back from the break, we will hit a few more questions from our listeners. And you've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3.
Tonight in Arkansas, there's a mother tucking in her daughter and turning off the light. A business owner is burning the midnight oil. An at-home dinner date is plating up possibility. And it's all happening under one roof. How? The power of a conversation, like the one John from Integrity Solutions had with First Horizon Bank about his vision for a sustainable mixed-use building. Now it's not just words, it's life. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/John. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Marketing is everywhere. From the billboards on the highways to the notifications on your phone, we are constantly bombarded with people trying to sell us stuff. What makes good marketing? Are you doing enough in your life personally and professionally to market yourself? You have questions, and the Marketing Madmen have answers. Search the Marketing Madmen on Google or your favorite podcast provider to get practical marketing advice from expert guests who are shaping and reshaping the business world. They say marketing is a madman's game. Join the Marketing Madmen every Saturday at 4 p.m. to find out why.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. Nick Constantino and Trip Job here, and we are answering your questions, your pertinent and timely and amazing marketing questions. If you have one, shoot us an email, madmen@extra1063.com. That's madmen@extra1063.com. We'll do our best to answer. Please give your name and a little promo for your business too, so we can give you some love on the radio and the podcast. Listenership is growing. Tell your friends about us. Again, Marketing Madmen. Search us on Google and you'll find us.
Who knows?
Anywhere.
Maybe we'll even come up with a little promo to send out.
Hey, we'll see one day. That's how you grow, baby. All right, so let's finish with this one. And I think this is a broad question, but I think it's starting to become to the masses. So how do I get into sports marketing? I think you'd have to live under a rock to not realize the power of being involved in something like the NFL, the power of something like the Pop-Tarts Bowl and what happened with eating the mascot. I mean, I think you have to be a fool to not understand why sports are so pervasive. So let's talk about how to get into it, because to preface all this, it is very expensive. And if you think you're going into sports marketing on a CPM, then you are playing with the D League at best.
And there's so much licensing and trademark, especially when you start talking about colleges and professional sports.
Even the high schools, dude.
Yeah.
Even the high schools these days, because
they've realized, right?
And NIL has thrown a wrench in all this, so you're right.
Yeah, so you've got to be careful. You can't just, there's no guerrilla tactics around this anymore.
We'll have that conversation.
Yeah,
there are guerrilla
for the
tactics,
most
but
part.
understand those guerrilla tactics are adjacencies.
Right.
And if someone's promising you're going to be involved, they're lying to you.
Right.
There's adjacencies. I can sell somebody a commercial right before I go to a Braves game, and yes, you're getting the benefit of it, but it is an adjacency at best. It is not, and that tactic works really well. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not telling anybody you're going to be on Braves 1 second before it, because that's a lie. And that's really violating the intellectual property of the Braves, because I'm monetizing the use of their name, which is very, very murky to say the least.
Yeah, no, and I think, and I meant the days of there were people who could get away with doing some things that were loosely trademark infringement. You just can't anymore. I mean, everyone's, there's tons of lawyers out there looking at it. And so understand, if you want to go into it, you need to go through certain channels, let's just say.
Yes,
right.
and you need to have well-written contracts, because people can promise you the world. You will get sued immediately, regardless of what that person says, if you infringe upon it. There are lawyers for most of these institutions, especially, like you said, college and pro, that are just there waiting to send cease and desist letters, because that's how you protect the brand and put money on it. You bring that up. Before we go into some of the tactics, one of the biggest issues nowadays, so NIL, just to be clear, name, image, likeness, is paying the players, now in high school some states allow it, and the college athletes for their likeness. Okay, here's the problem. The schools also are paid for their likeness. So if you take Johnny from Georgia Tech and monetize his name, you cannot do it with somebody who is competitive with the school. So you can't have Rose's Pizza from the player go up against Papa John's from the school, because Papa John's is paying a lot more money to the school. So the player's name, what is it worth without the institution? Okay, the fight now is called statement of fact. I play football at Georgia Tech. Is that copywritten in intellectual property or not? And it's going to go to the Supreme Court. Is that copyright? Is that a statement of fact, or is that an intellectual property protected statement? That's what they're fighting over right now. So when you were promised NIL,
my opinion is it's a statement of fact. But
my opinion is that the school's lobbying arms are much more powerful than the players' lobbying arms. So the government is going to go inside of where the money is. That's my fear. I agree with you. Now, there are ways around it, right? Like, I play football at the University of Georgia. I play football in Athens, right? If you can't figure out what that means, you're not the target audience for this anyway. So there are ways around it. But you've added another layer in who's making money off all of this that convolutes it. So tactics.
Yeah. So do you want to go after the players? Do you want to go after I want my brand associated? I want a signage board or whatever. Do I want to run advertisements during broadcast? Do I want to buy tickets? Be events? There's a lot. Those are just a few ways you can be involved.
Agree.
Right. And what are you trying to accomplish?
Yep.
If you just want your brand associated, all right, maybe it is the signage, and it maybe is working with some influencer, whether it's at the school, a player, or whatever. That's one way to go about it.
Yeah, I think ultimately the way you have to think about this is it has changed immensely. Putting your name on a stadium is not as powerful as it was when it first started 15, 20 years ago. So nowadays, what is the strategy behind said sponsorship? What is the content strategy? It doesn't matter. If you sponsor the Georgia Swarm lacrosse team, but you're sponsoring it around the stadium to people who you know are lacrosse fans, that is a very easy marketing strategy that can be way more effective than sponsoring the Braves. So Are you using players? Are you using this as content? Are you using this as surprise and delight for your customers to get access to tickets? Are you doing an on-field thing where there's a chance to get on field and do some demo? Are you doing all that stuff? Most teams, good teams, if you bring those ideas to the table, will discount it, not charge more, because you are thinking of how to integrate with fans, and that is worth more than slapping your name up on a billboard. That is worth more than just being annoying people with emails and stuff like that.
I've done over the years countless, event type marketings where we've taken good customers to special events, to traditional, sporting events, you name it, and the ability to see it up and close, to see a certain perspective. I mean, people talk about that 10 years later.
Yep.
I mean, I think
but you're right. But nowadays, it's happening all the time. It's become like you got to keep one-upping yourself. Like, I mean, there are times where, like, I took a client to Wade Hampton, right? Like we went to the casino. It was an amazing experience. He goes, I've played Pebble. Well, I'm like, you bark. Like, come on, dude.
Exactly.
Come on. What do you mean you played Pebble? We're sitting in the mountains. There's like 200 people that could ever play this course. Enjoy it. So I think and the higher
who's your
you get
audience?
But the higher you get up on the spectrum of who these people are and seniority in the company and marketing, the more they come to expect this stuff, which means that you can't do it without the intention of building a relationship around it. So there's more to it than just these. This used to be enough. This is not enough anymore, if that makes sense. I also think, look, depending on the size of your company, the Braves might not be the right thing, but you know what? The AAA affiliate might be. The AAA affiliate might be. People are having more fun. They probably have a more dedicated fan base for the individual games. Most people at these stadiums, dude, they're corporate people. They're there on a friend's tickets. They're there for a different reason.
And the other thing, and we do get outside of Atlanta a little bit, and the move, I guess, next year where AA is moving to Columbus. Think about the reach. To your point, it might not just be AAA Gwinnett. It might be AA Columbus. It might be single A Rome. It may be these opportunities depending on you can associate with the Braves in another way depending on where you are in the metro area.
You're right. And then you're opening up yourself to a new market, and maybe it's just because it's so close. Maybe it's just a secondary offshoot of a market you already have here. Then that sponsorship makes a ton of sense to do it that way. Yeah, look, there's high schools now. There's so many different levels you get sponsorship. The first most important thing, don't bite off more than you can chew. Start small. I don't want to say experiment because you got to put the right money and time to it. And usually when people think experiment, they don't put the right money and time to it. But start small. Start with a list of goals that you want to get out of it. And then go see which partner out there fits your goals. Don't let their sports people.
And don't write a check and then just let it go.
So they're sports people. Because I'm in the industry, I can say this. They have all played sports. They're all competitive. They all want to Don't let them. Give the set of your needs and see if your needs fit with theirs. And if they're going to continue the conversation with you, then go and say your budget outright. Because here's what happens. If you don't say your budget, you're getting a $300,000 sponsorship, okay? And wasting everybody's time because all you got is $50,000. If you have $50,000, don't even start the conversation with anything but I have $50,000. I know it sounds counterintuitive. I know it does. I understand it. But you're wasting everyone's time.
What can I get for X? Here's what I have to spend.
Here are what I'd like to get out of it. Here's the money I have. What can you think of? And then if the answer is not much, well, here are some of my ideas. How can you fit these in with what you do? If you do that, most people in sponsorship will bend and give you. Now, if you are a car dealership or you are a cell phone company, don't try these tactics. There's a million of you competing for the same thing. But like, for example, if you're a jewelry store and there's no jewelry store in the stadium, go have the conversation. What's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. No, great comments and great questions from the listeners. So we look forward to doing this again in the near future as you guys have questions. So you have been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. We'll talk to you next week.
Marketing is everywhere. From the billboards on the highways to the notifications on your phone, we are constantly bombarded with people trying to sell us stuff. What makes good marketing? Are you doing enough in your life personally and professionally to market yourself? You have questions, and the Marketing Madmen have answers. Search the Marketing Madmen on Google or your favorite podcast provider to get practical marketing advice from expert guests who are shaping and reshaping the business world. They say marketing is a madman's game. Join the Marketing Madmen every Saturday at 4 p.m. to find out why.
A lifetime of hard work, children laughing in the kitchen, family photos on a restaurant wall, a legacy that lives on. It all comes from the power of a conversation, like the one Tommy Hall had with First Horizon Bank about taking over his father's Charleston-based restaurant business. Now the table is set for a whole new generation. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Tommy. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Hi, I'm Mark Beckham with Atlanta Ramjack. We specialize in only foundation repair. What is foundation repair? Foundations sink or settle. These issues need to be addressed. It only becomes more costly the longer you put it off. What is the biggest cause of foundation problem? Either poor construction, inferior site preparation, or weather. Drought causes cracks in your foundations. If you see any signs of foundation issues, please contact us at atlantaramjack.com.